With the Linus Ullmark trade having been pulled off, what is next for the Boston Bruins?
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, June 27th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All right, we're getting into a very busy stretch here for hockey news as the NHL draft is set for tomorrow. We have free agency beginning on Monday, buyout window, etc. Don Sweeney, general manager of the Boston Bruins, is set to address the media from Vegas here on Thursday afternoon. We'll bring you everything you need to know from that media availability on tomorrow's podcast. But today, I wanted to tee up what exactly is next for the Bruins, what's on their priority list, what's on their to-do list, now that the Linus Ullmark trade has been pulled off. We'll touch on that again a bit later on in today's episode. Before we get started, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at Ian C. McLaren. So the Bruins now have the 25th overall pick at the NHL entry draft. The first round will take place Friday evening in Vegas. They also have quite a bit of cap space to work with, even after adding Joonas Korpisalo and Mark Kastelic in that Linus Ullmark trade. $21 million, about $21.6 million is what they have in available cap space. They have, I believe, 19 NHL roster players signed to contracts. And the big one they need to figure out, I would say, before Monday is Jeremy Swayman. Restricted free agent. He is your new number one goalie. He's the future in net for this team. He needs to be taken care of immediately so that you know what you have left to spend on Monday. You don't want to go into a situation where you sign some free agents on Monday and then have limited space to sign Swayman. You want to get him done. The problem is now that he has a bit more leverage because Ullmark's gone. Korpisalo, Bussy under contract. And there's no real urgency on his part to get a deal done. He can kind of wait and get what he wants from this team. And they need to get him in the fold because they no longer have Ullmark to defer to in net. They no longer have him to serve as the 1B to Swayman. There's a much more significant drop-off between Swayman and his backup now than there has been over the past couple of years. And if you want to spend big in free agency, which they're in a decent position to do, then you need to get Swayman signed so you know exactly what you are working with. Say Swayman signs for $7 million, then you have 14 remaining to get some forwards signed and perhaps a defenseman as well. Is that enough to attract? Well, we'll discuss who could be available on the open market here coming up as the podcast continues later on. For now, I think that is something they need to get done before Monday so that they know exactly what they have to spend in free agency. The next thing, of course, is the NHL draft, and it's something that we hadn't paid much attention to coming into the festivities, and that's because they weren't scheduled to pick until the 4th round. But now, after having made this deal with the Ottawa Senators, they recouped their original 1st round pick and will draft 25th overall. Now, there's a few names that you're going to hear over the next couple of days in terms of who they should be looking at. And I've already mentioned a couple. First being Jett Luchanko of the OHL's Guelph Storm. Obviously, the Bruins have a bit of a history taking Guelph Storm player Matt Poitras in the mix. Unfortunately, looking at the mock drafts, I've seen one on NHL.com, looking at one on ESPN. They have Luchanko going, NHL has them going 19th to the Vegas Golden Knights or 20th to the New York Islanders. Rachel Dory on ESPN has Luchanko going 20th overall to the Islanders as well. She writes, he's a popular player among scouts. Islanders are an identity team, and Luchanko's ability to dictate the pace of the game with his motor fits that identity well. His production exploded this season with an elevated role in Guelph. That is because Poitras was up in Boston, and he was excellent in a depth role at the under-18 World Championships. He's a versatile player, Swiss Army knife potential, two-way speedy center who brings offensive punch, shifty, still developing his playmaking ability. The Islanders, or whoever, will be getting a player with unique package, lots of runway to develop into a second-line player as one of the younger players in the class. Again, I know I'm a bit biased because I live in Guelph, but he's a guy that I would be very happy to see the Bruins draft at 25th overall. Now, another guy that I had looked at was Sacha Beauvert. Rachel Dory has him going 26th to the Montreal Canadiens on NHL.com. One person has him going 23rd to the Toronto Maple Leafs, or 18th, as high as 18th, to the Chicago Blackhawks. He's got a good 200-foot game as well. He's a skilled center. He's a guy that I could easily get on board with the Bruins picking. Now, a third name that has popped up, and I've seen him both on NHL.com and Rachel Dory's picks on ESPN. They have the Bruins taking Cole Beaudoin of the OHL's Barrie Colts. On NHL.com, Mark Moriali writes, the left-handed shot is a well-conditioned athlete with fantastic compete and hockey sense, often compared to Blue Jackets forward and captain Boone Jenner. Bruins need depth at forward, and he can offer just that. He's a responsible 200-foot player. You're going to hear that a lot with respect to the Bruins. That's what they covered. Rachel Dory writes, the Bruins acquired this pick in the trade for Linus Ullmark. It was originally their own, and they need a good player here. Beaudoin is someone the Bruins have been watching closely, and his performance at the U18 championships increased their interest. Dory continues, Beaudoin fits the Bruins' identity of a physically mature center with good hockey sense, ability to win puck battles, and most importantly, has that dog in him. The Bruins need to bolster their prospect pool, and Beaudoin gives them a reliable option in the middle six going forward. If Beaudoin's gone, she could also see the Bruins liking Sacha Beauvert in this spot. So those are three guys I'm targeting. Luchanko, Beauvert, Beaudoin. Of Boisvert, Rachel Dory writes, with a plethora. He's a sharpshooter with a unique blend of two-way awareness, physicality, and well-rounded offensive traits. He can score, execute a wide array of passes, and has the puck retrieval skills to be a power forward in the NHL. Now, one guy who could be off the radar, but a high reward pick, you're going to hear this name a lot as well, Dean Letourneau from St. Andrews College. He's very raw, but the physical package, he's like 6'7", combined with excellent hands, is enticing. Think Tage Thompson of the Buffalo Sabres. There's a chance he could become the unicorn Rachel writes every team wishes it had drafted a few years from now. That's an off-the-board name that you can look. So, to begin, the Bruins need to sign Jeremy Swayman. They need to hit with their first-round draft pick. And as the podcast continues, we'll discuss what else is next for this team here now that the Linus Ullmark trade has come and gone. If you're looking to hit up a Red Sox game this summer, there's no better place to get your tickets than Game Time. Game Time is an official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, and it makes getting tickets faster and easier. I've been looking on there today as the New York Yankees are up here in Toronto this weekend. Astros are in town, Canada Day. I was looking at tickets. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and a low price guarantee, taking all the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. I love the view from your seat. You know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the ballpark, and all-in pricing means there are no surprise fees at checkout. Download Game Time, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time. Last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. While you're on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today. All the latest news, opinions, and analysis from across the Locked On universe. Tons of stuff there on the NBA draft last night, first round, hockey news, everything you need to know from all across the Locked On Sports universe on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and the Amazon Fire TV channels app. So I was looking on ESPN as well, and they had an article about how all 32 teams can earn an A+ grade in free agency. Obviously, as I talked about earlier, their first priority is signing Swayman to a long-term deal and solidifying his position as their number one goaltender. Getting that done, they required trading Linus Ullmark first. They took care of that by sending Ullmark to Ottawa this week for a package including goaltender Joonas Korpisalo. Removing Ullmark's $5 million cap hit for next season and replacing it with $3 million in salary for Korpisalo, plus additional funds to Mark Kostelic, who's making $835,000 this coming season. Provided Don Sweeney with some space to give Swayman the raise he deserves. And Boston, they surmise, should benefit from Korpisalo in a backup spot where he's been more comfortable in his career than as a starter. I got a lot of comments on YouTube yesterday about the Korpisalo plan. A lot of people rightly saying, give goalie Bob some time to work his magic here. It was a bit of a crap show in Ottawa last season. Coaching changes, bad defensive system. A lot of people expecting Korpisalo to thrive in Boston, and I could easily see that. Taking on his $3 million, I still think is a lot. I would have liked to have seen them have more flexibility cap-wise, because on Monday they're going to have some holes to fill. ESPN, and this was Ryan Clark and Kristen Shilton writing, once they re-sign Swayman, they can focus on boosting their forward depth, particularly at center. They target Steven Stamkos, who we've talked about a couple of weeks ago, Elias Lindholm, who of course has long been rumored to be coming to the Boston Bruins, or at least being a target of the Boston Bruins. They add Alex Wenberg, are all potential targets who could fill that role well in Boston. Re-signing Jake DeBrusk is a great in-house option for Sweeney to get over the line quickly. I tweeted last night, or X'd, or whatever you want to call it, that I'm going to be pretty upset if the Bruins decide to part from Jake DeBrusk and also don't replace him with a player of equal or better value. There has to be a good reason not to sign Jake DeBrusk. He's familiar with this team. He's played well in this team. Yes, he's inconsistent scoring wise, but he's developed into a great, again, 200-foot player, kills penalties for this team, brings a lot more than offense, which they could really miss if they allow him to walk. And it does seem as though that is going to be the case. They can fill around the edges with veteran skaters like Tyler Toffoli or Victor Arvidsson. I'm still on board with bringing Tyler Bertuzzi back if the price is right. He did thrive in his time with Boston. I'm not, desperate to have that reunion, but still, I'm a huge fan of Tyler Bertuzzi. They finished by adding, if there's cash left on the books, expect Sweeney to spy some blue line help from third pairing possibilities such as Shane Gostisbehere or Brendan Dillon. Those are the three areas that the Bruins will need to fill. They certainly need a top line center, or a top six center at the very least. They need at least one scoring winger and possibly two if they allow DeBrusk to leave. And they also need some depth on the left side of the blue line. Yes, they have Hampus Lindholm. They have Mason Lohrei, Parker Wotherspoon. But there's questions about whether you want both Lohrei and Wotherspoon in the lineup each and every night, or if you want to kind of rotate them. Do you want Lohrei thrown into a top four situation? Do you want to ease him into things, give him some power play time with less defensive responsibility? They only have 6 defensemen signed to NHL contracts at the moment. They need to add at least one, if not two, or maybe they plan to give Ian Mitchell a shot to earn a spot after re-signing him. But a defenseman or two is definitely on the table. What's working for them right now is they have a bunch of guys, depth guys, signed to below $1 million contracts. John Beecher, Justin Brazeau, Jacob Lauko, Mark Kostelic and Patrick Brown to lesser degrees. Perhaps Fabian Lysell can be that guy who steps into a scoring winger role. But I still think they need to look there in order to add here in free agency. The Bruins cannot go without adding here when it comes to top 6 center and scoring winger. There's other guys available like Chandler Stevenson, we've talked about in the past. There's Max Domi, perhaps. Tyler Bertuzzi, I mentioned. When it comes to defensemen, there's, Brendan Dillon, Shane Gostisbehere. Maybe they give Oliver Ekman-Larsson a look after he won a cup with Florida. They had targeted him when he was back with the Canucks, or the Coyotes, Alexander Carrier in Nashville. These are guys the Bruins could target. On the back end, lots of guys up front. Anthony Duclair is another guy that I would like to see, have always coveted in black and gold. So that's what's next for the Bruins. They got to re-sign Swayman. They have to hit in the first round of the draft, and they have to spend their money well and wisely on Monday, whether it be Lindholm, Stamkos. I would love to see Bertuzzi, DeBrusk, Gostisbehere, whoever on the back end. They need to hit in those areas. And it's a real time. This past season was a transition year. This is more of a, they have the money to spend it well. Still have to decide on whether they're going to bring back Heinen, Maroon, Van Riemsdyk up front. We can all but say goodbye to Forbort, Grzelcyk, Shattenkirk on the back end. It'll be interesting to see where they land as well. One guy we know for sure is not coming back is Linus Ullmark. He had his introductory media availability in Ottawa on Wednesday, and we learned a lot from him there, and we'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. You will not see Linus Ullmark embracing Anton Forsberg in the same way that he did with our boy Jeremy Swayman. He made that clear on Wednesday, saying he's not bringing the trademark wide open arms Scott Stapp style hug to Ottawa. It's a patented goalie hug, he said, we had in Boston. That is for him and Sway only. That's out of respect for what they had and what they built through their years together, and the respect and admiration that he has for Jeremy Swayman. Now, he's not saying he's not going to come up with another celebration, and I'm sure Jeremy Swayman and Joonas Korpisalo might come up with something of their own as well. Always celebrations after winning games, but maybe it'll be a dab or something instead of that with arms wide open hug. So that's something that we know for sure. The goalie hug is dead. Now, Linus Ullmark, more importantly, said he's happy to be an Ottawa Senator, but he's holding off on talking about a long-term deal for now. And that's certainly something that kept his trade value down. He has not yet had any extension talks with his new team. He's 30 years old, 31 coming up next month. 1 year left on his current contract. He said it's all very fresh. His biggest concern right now is finding a place for his family to live in, finding schools for his kids, getting to know the people in Ottawa and also the Senators. He said, quote, the whole contract situation and the talks, something that he and Steve Staios and his agent will deal with off to the side. Once there's something to be discussed, he's always willing to talk about it, but he's trying not to look too far ahead, staying in the moment, not worrying about what could or could be not be in the future, just enjoying the present. You know, I grew up in Ottawa. It's a great city. Senators have always kind of been my B team. I'm very happy for the people of Ottawa that they're getting a guy like Linus Ullmark. He's dreamed about being a clear number one, he said, and playing a lot of games in Ottawa. He's going to get that chance. He's never played more than 49 games in a season. Could very well top 50 next year. And the hope and goal is, of course, to be the starter in a playoff game for the Ottawa Senators for him. What a story it would be. This is looking way too far ahead. But can you imagine the Senators and Bruins in the playoffs next year? Ullmark versus Swayman. That would be pretty nuts. But that's looking way too far ahead. For now, he's an Ottawa Senator. We wish him well. I'm very sad to see him go. Again, don't really quite understand taking on the $3 million of Korpisalo when there are other options out there that could have been cheaper. You've got Bussy in-house, but the Bruins seem to think that they, and particularly goalie Bob, can get the best out of him, get the most out of him. They see the $3 million for a backup goalie or a secondary goalie to be good value. And, there's every reason to believe that goalie Bob can indeed get maximum value out of Joonas Korpisalo in a backup role to Jeremy Swayman. They need to get Swayman signed. Hope to see news of that today would be great. If and when that happens, of course, there'll be live reaction on the YouTube channel. So please do subscribe over there. Subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins on your favorite podcast app. And yeah, follow along on social media and on X, Instagram, at Locked NHL Bruins, and at ENC McLaren. That's it, friends. Buyouts coming, the draft, trades, free agency. It's going to be a good couple of days. So please do jump on board and subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.